Hello, Laura.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
Oh, wow. What a question. What a question. Well, doing as well as possible. I don't know if
Mhm.
I'm ready for March, but here we are.
Here we are, surviving and thriving during the Mars retrograde. We both have a pretty amazing story about Mars retrograde in Cancer, but we are almost at the finish line.
Yes, we're recording this just about 4 days before Mars stations and the retrograde ends, and we're already starting to feel relief, and we hope all of you are too, because my goodness.
Yes. So we just wanted to do a very high level overview of February because a lot went on and not all of it was great, I have to admit. But basically, I tried to track each of the news stories that happened to a specific transit, and it just seemed that the overall underlying theme was the Mars retrograde in the sign of Cancer, like the ongoing ice raids, which is very much displacement from home, right? Cancer. And one positive thing that happened was on February 3rd during the Grammys. I didn't actually watch the Grammys. Did you?
No.
Yeah, I just watched the clips
Yeah.
afterwards. And I do like Chapel Roan, which by the way, I thought it was Chappelle Roan until like just recently. And my millennial brain. Chapel Roan, when she won the Grammy for best pop album, was a pop album.
I think Best New Artist, or
Best
maybe Pop
artist.
Album. I don't know.
See, we didn't watch it, so we're not even sure. But she calls out the music industry and how they need to step up and support their artists and that they need to have healthcare coverage. And she said that when she was ever going to win a Grammy, she wanted to use her platform to raise awareness to something. And I did think this was interesting because Chapel has her sun, Jupiter, and Mars in the sign of Pisces in the sixth whole sign house. And the sixth whole sign house is about health.
Hmm.
And 2 days before, there was a Venus in Pisces conjunct Neptune and the North Node transiting her sixth house. So I'm just wondering because in March, we're going to see this again, this activation, if anything else is going to happen or if Chapel's going to continue on with this healthcare coverage, I guess.
I think there'll be some changes because of it. I've read some articles that other artists were also donating. She made a donation, like $25,000 towards something. And I think some other artists also stepped up. And I feel like when we see those conjunctions again, maybe some changes will take place in the music industry. I don't know.
Yeah. And, Pisces is a part of the Pisces Virgo axis, which is about healing. And Luigi Mangione's trial, I think, starts in March, or like, I think he is going to become more visible again. And then I'm curious to hear your like post full moon in Leo predictions because you made, well, we both said that something was going to happen to Trump and Elon, but you said something very specifically about Elon Musk.
Yeah, so I thought that Elon and Trump would be getting in a fight. And who knows, maybe something happened behind the scenes. We don't really know.
Yes.
But what was interesting is that I also said, based on Elon Musk's chart, his Mars rules the fifth house of children and romantic partners, and also the 10th house of like publicity. So on that full moon, that's when he brought his child to the Oval Office. And then Grimes, his ex, kind of came out and said, like, hey, like my kid should not be in public like this. And I think my prediction was like some of his old partners might
Yes.
take, issue with something or come forward and, complain about him or have share some of their truth and their experiences. But it was quite literal. It was like his son was put on display, very 10th house, but his Mars is also located in the eighth house of secrets and what's hidden.
Mhm.
And there are these clips of his son. I don't remember word for word, but he was basically saying to Trump, like, I want you to shush your mouth and like, you're not the president. right?
He
And
said the
so,
F word. He said, shut the fuck up.
oh,
Yeah.
on one hand, it's like his son's young. It's not like he's making this up on his own. He's
Right.
like mimicking behavior. He's repeating things he's heard before. So he was kind of revealing Elon's hidden motives, which is very like Mars in the eighth house. And they were on full display and it involved his child. So it was just like literal astrology when you look at,
Mhm.
and when you interpret eighth house, 10th house, fifth house activation. And I think, I don't know if it was yesterday or a few days ago, Elon and Trump were interviewed on Fox News. And I think someone was asking them about like, well, people are saying that Elon's really running the presidency, and they were kind of like laughing it off. But they're Trump, I don't know. I think that there's just more public conversations about how, yeah, like Elon is literally like a shadow president.
Yes, I saw that.
Hmm.
I think more of it is going to come out uh, during maybe the Venus and Mercury retrograde.
Hmm. Hmm.
The girlies are fighting, like we said.
Yeah.
And they're both narcissistic, egomaniac people. So I don't think that this is a romance or bromance by any means.
No, no,
It's
no,
like
no.
keep your enemies close kind of thing.
And they have 12th house activations in each other's charts. So
Yes.
it's definitely all about keeping their enemies closer.
Yes. One last thing that I did want to mention was that so Kendrick Lamar, who has appeared in the Grammys, he won like 5 Grammys, and he also performed at the Super Bowl halftime show, which is arguably the largest stage in the world. It's viewed by 150 million people. And regardless of your discourse on the symbolism behind it, I think this is so significant because Kendrick Lamar has Mars in the sign of Cancer at 17 degrees, closely conjunct to Mercury in Cancer and his midheaven. And it just kind of shows that planets that are fallen during a retrograde can also mean reclaiming or getting a return on your investment for past work.
Mm.
So I don't think fallen planets, well, I believe that fallen planets and detriment planets have their own medicine and their own magic. I don't always think that they are, womp womp.
Hmm.
And also, retrogrades don't necessarily mean that nothing is going to happen.
Totally. They have their own superpower and they just
Mhm.
manifest differently outside of the status quo, which, let's be real, that's a great thing because the status quo isn't working for any of us.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And and as long as you do your Mars and the way that it wants to express, you have to honor the energy. That's when I think it becomes your biggest gift.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So should we start on March?
Let's
Are
get
we all
started with,
ready?
yeah, because, okay, so if you didn't tune in to our last episode, we have just been talking about March kind of all year because it is the biggest month of the year. It has the most major changes. Events are taking place that haven't happened since the 1800s.
Mhm.
We got double retrogrades, an eclipse, a outer planet change that hasn't happened for centuries. So just a lot going on.
Yes. There's going to be a BM before March and an AM after March.
Yes.
And I feel like your life is going to change whether you want it to or not. If I can be
Yes.
so bold as to say that, right?
100%. 100%.
Because eclipses alone are fated endings and beginnings. And then you have these retrogrades, and then you have an outer planet sign change in a cardinal fire sign.
The first sign of the zodiac, too. So it
Yes.
is like there's that extra potent,
Mhm.
and it's on a world point, which is zero
Yes.
degrees of Aries. That cardinal signs at 0 degrees are bigger deals.
Thank you for mentioning that because I meant to say that. I meant to write that in our notes, but then I forgot.
Yeah. So let's
Okay,
dive in.
let's dive in. On March 1st, Venus will station retrograde in the sign of Aries.
Yes. Now, this is taking place at 10 degrees of Aries. So, if you have any planets or placements, especially in the cardinal signs, so Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn around 10 degrees, you're going to feel this the most intensely. This retrograde is traveling between Aries and Pisces. So, two different sections of your birth chart that you're going to want to pay attention to. Um, Interesting that Venus is going to start out in detriment in Aries, but then it goes into the exaltation, Pisces. So it's going to be struggling a little bit more as it moves through Aries, but then there's some sort of relief or a definite vibe shift, even though we're still moving through the retrograde.
Mm-hmm. The last time Venus was retrograde in Aries, I'll just try to go back as far as I think our listeners were alive.
Mhm.
It was 2017, which was the most recent one. And you can go back in 8 year increments. So 2009, 2001, 1993, 1985, 1977, 1969. I meant to write 1961, 1953, and 1945. So just think back to what happened during those retrograde years to give you similar, like hints of similar clues of what might happen this time around.
Yes, yes. Um, And I think you can also, we had a Mercury retrograde in Aries last year from April 1st through the 25th. So if you can
Mhm.
kind of think back to that time period as well, you can also come up with clues because we're also going to have a Mercury retrograde in Aries this month.
Yes. And I just remember the one in 2017. I think we mentioned it in last month's forecast when it was after the Women's March in DC and everyone was wearing those like pussy hats,
Mm-hmm.
because that's also when Trump, the first time he became president. So I just wrote some keywords, and I'm just speaking about the Venus and Aries portion for now. Keywords: passionate and quick romance, sex scandals, protests, femme issues, avant garde art. Because I'm thinking of like Lady Gaga, who has a
Mm.
Venus in Aries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think
So
of?
I think generally Venus retrogrades can bring up issues in our relationships, but they can also invite us to reflect on unhealthy dynamics that aren't sustainable moving forward. So they can actually help you befriend conflict and confrontation. This can be a very productive time for organizing work and for
Mhm.
social causes and movements and for coming together. And we could definitely see an uptick of protests and people reclaiming their collective power and coming together. Um, so that could be something positive.
Yes. Fighting for what you love.
Mhm.
Venus in a Mars sign is like fighting for what you believe in, your values.
And protecting those
Mhm.
who deserve it and need it
Yes.
most. There's that very like courageous protective element, I think, as well.
Mhm. And risk taking,
Hmm.
as like Aries is the risk taker, the pioneer, not always thinking about the consequences, but
Yeah.
very bold in action.
Yeah. So this is definitely going to be an important period to pay attention to. I believe the retrograde goes through April 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It's 40 days and 40 nights, right?
yes, and I saw, I can't remember the name, but there was a pastor who was like calling for a boycott of Target. Did you see this?
Oh no.
Um Starting on March 5th, which is right after the retrograde begins, and he specifically said like the boycott 40 days, 40 nights because it's a
Oh,
pushback against them going back on DEI.
right.
So, but I thought that was so retrograde. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like calling for this, protest and boycott
Mhm.
so close to the start of the Venus retrograde. And it's literally
Mhm.
the same length, 40 days, 40 nights.
Wow. Did you see that Target has already lost $15.7 billion in like when was it, like 2 weeks
Yeah. Yeah. And
since they announced that they were pulling back their DEI initiatives? I was like, that was not a good decision.
well, and it's just proof for all of us and a reminder that these BDS movements do work and that like our
Mhm.
money is our power and where we put it really does matter because the investors, I think, I read an article that they are wanting to, or shareholders, yeah, and investors are wanting to sue some of the
Mhm.
leadership at Target who made this decision because they're like, you didn't tell us that all of our
Mhm.
shares would go down if you pulled
Mhm.
back from DEI. And then the founders of Target, the daughters of the founders, are speaking out against this. And they're like, this is horrific. Like, so
Mhm.
there's movement and it's working. So keep
Mhm.
doing it and keep participating.
Yes. Yes, because the only way to get their attention is through our dollars.
Yes.
That's the only language they speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I have not shopped at Target since. And I have to say, it used to be my happy place, but I'm not going anywhere near Target until this gets resolved.
Yeah.
I have not shopped at Target. I have not gone to Starbucks and all the other places at BD at like that are on the BDS. And I've saved so much money that now I reinvest that money towards mutual aid and people that actually need it. And that's just really how, not I don't want to like project and say that's how we should all be doing, how we should all be using our money, but that is how we create change. We redistribute the money towards our community and not corporations.
Yes. And you have to start somewhere. And, you know, it over time, it becomes easier and easier. Like, yeah, I have not had Starbucks since October 7th, before October 7th of last year. Um, and Target, it was also the love of my life.
Love of my life.
And I'm very heartbroken. And I've pulled back significantly. So, and I think it's not about perfection, but it's about mindfulness, right? Like
Mhm.
the formula that Sloan eats, the only type she eats is only available at Target or directly from the supplier. So I changed and like got a subscription to the supplier, so I'm paying them
Mhm.
directly. But
Mhm.
if we run out, I have to
Yeah.
go there to get it. But it's just mindfulness, right? Like it's
Right.
not. So, anyways,
It's like divestment,
yes.
because as much as you can, because we still live within the system, and it's just about consciously divesting where you can.
Yep. Yep.
March 1st, again, same day, Mercury in Pisces will conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 27 degrees.
And this is going to happen two more times. April 4th and April 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, Mercury is the planet of communication, information, and the North Node has to do with our fate and destiny. Interesting that it's happening again on April 10th, which is like right before the Venus retrograde ends. And this is taking place
Mm-hmm.
on the same day as Venus going retrograde. So there's definitely going to be conversations that take place that might feel emotional
Mm-hmm.
and might be fated in some way.
Yes, I just love all of these Mercury connections this month. There's something about Mercury connecting with the North Node, and then it connects with all the different planets during the retrograde too. It's like gathering data, like, what is my destiny? What do I want to do? What do I want with my life? What do I believe in? And I think there's something magical happening here.
It's so busy this month.
Yes. And what do you feel? What do you feel about the North Node being about your destiny versus like the midheaven?
I think they both have to do with it. I think when you're interpreting a chart, you take a blend of multiple things, right? Like, um, so the North Node might be part of your destiny that you're more unfamiliar and uncomfortable with, and it takes more time to
Mm-hmm.
get into that role or embrace it
Mm-hmm.
because it's more unknown, but or unfamiliar to you. Uh, And then whereas like the midheaven is like how people perceive you today, like what
Yeah.
you're known for today. Um, but yeah, I think there's a blend there.
Mhm. Yeah. And the North Node in Pisces is just giving like the mystical nature of life.
Yeah, if you don't have a spiritual practice, if you don't have spiritual hygiene, this is your wake up call.
Mm-hmm. March 2nd, Mercury in Pisces will conjunct Neptune in Pisces. And this will happen at 28 degrees.
Yes. And yeah, this is also going to happen two other times. March 29th and April 17th. So whatever's unfolding today is directly connected to those two dates. Um, Mercury and Neptune, when they come together, I think it's time for a good cry.
Mm-hmm.
News could be a little sad or overwhelming. It's hard to keep up with your boundaries energetically. I would say this is not a great day for, I, I don't know. What do you think? For divination work, I would say you
Yes, for
might
sure.
you might feel like your intuition is heightened, but your boundaries might also be lower. So if you are going to engage in divination work, you really gotta um, make sure your hygiene is on point.
Yeah. I was going to say this is a good day to, well, it depends on your relationship to the unknown because Neptune in Pisces is just the unknown. It's like the mystical fog that you just don't know where you're going. And so if you don't like that kind of energy, this could just be a great day to like listen to music and go to a sauna or something.
Mhm.
But see, I have a Mercury in Pisces and actually I'm looking at this transit as a good day to write parts of my book that is like a fantasy fiction. So
Yeah.
I'm going to like channel that energy to bring me to a different like state, a different dimension and realm. So again, I guess it depends on your relationship to the mystical. What I find interesting about this is that when it connects on March 29th, it will like be at 59 degrees and no 29 degrees and 59 minutes, like right before it enters into Aries. And then the next connection, the third connection, is April 17th when they're conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries. So the first connection on March 2nd, I don't know, there's something about like that, like getting some kind of download and then maybe you take action when Mercury
Mm,
goes direct.
yeah. These are going to be kind of once in a lifetime events because we haven't
Mhm.
had Neptune and Pisces this far
Yeah,
in
no.
the sign ever while we've been alive. And then,
Mhm.
yeah, we haven't had Neptune and Aries either. So I would say this could definitely be a little bit of a life changing.
Yes.
Hmm.
Receiving a download from like another realm. And I don't know. I just watched Interstellar. Have you ever watched that movie?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you need to watch it
Okay.
because it's basically, you know how we always say the aliens are just us from the future? Like this movie is that.
Oh, okay. I'm in.
So I'm like, what future version of myself is talking to me now?
I'm in. Okay. So,
You know how
yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
you know how we say like I think I said this in like two forecasts ago. I consider Neptune and Pisces to be an alien like transit.
Yeah, we do get a lot of alien stuff around Neptune and Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's a big day.
That's a big day. The second transit is the Sun in Pisces is square Jupiter and Gemini at 11 degrees, and Jupiter and Gemini has been at 11 degrees for forever.
For forever since, before February 4th, because that's
Yes.
when the retrograde ended and it was just kind of hanging out at 11
Mm-hmm.
degrees. And a month later, still there.
Still there.
So, yeah, this is the closing square of the Sun Jupiter cycle. So, squares mean change, pivots, adjustments, because it's a closing square. There could be some sort of revelation you have about letting go or releasing or making a change, especially regarding your belief systems or your goals and your dreams. Um, it's going to bring you back to conversations, ideas, goals you set for yourself around May 18th of last year, because that is when we had the Sun Jupiter conjunction, which was
Mhm.
actually in Taurus. So yeah, this is a pivot. Sometimes you can learn lucky news or feel like you are there's some sort of positive development that takes place in your life, but this could also be a day where you just have a change of perspective as well.
Yeah. Or you can just feel like this part of my life isn't growing anymore and I need to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 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 yes.
I'm just thinking like Jupiter in Gemini at 11 degrees is just sitting there, and there's like that Gemini house not moving. Like nothing is advancing, and it must feel very frustrating for a lot of people who are used to some kind of growth in their life. I mean, I can attest to this, right? And it's like
Yeah.
just sitting there.
Yes, if you have any fire placements in your chart, you love movement and action
Yes,
and that stillness of the planet. You can definitely feel it. I'm ready for some movement.
literally. I'm like, when is it going to get to 12 degrees at least? Something.
Yes. And that's going to kind of trace over all of these other interactions that Jupiter has had with Venus and with
Mhm.
Mercury back in February and I think even late January. So it's definitely going to bring up some sagas and stories. And the sun is the illuminator, so there might be some important revelation or information that's revealed.
Mhm. And like you said, Pisces is the ending. And so, right, you said that
Mhm.
it's the last sign, it's about letting go. And so, yeah, you might need to let go of something. It's the closing square.
Yeah.
March 3rd, Mercury enters Aries.
So I
I'm
live
laughing
with
because of your note.
the retrograde vibes begin. So beware. Um, I also live with two people who have Mercury and Aries.
Wow, what is that like? Are they loud?
They're chatty.
Yes.
They don't stop chatting. Yes, which is great for both of them.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have my Mercury in Leo, so we're trying
Mhm.
to each other. We get it. I like to
Yeah.
chat too. Um, but yes, I would say having your Mercury in a Mars ruled sign is like a lot of energy behind your
Mhm.
communication and also kind of like playful witty banter like poking at you and
Mhm.
making jokes is like a form of endearment is
I was
very
gonna
like
say, does Joey give you like, does he like pick on you as a form of flirting or something?
he like roasts me
Yeah.
constantly. I'm constantly roasted in this house. Yes. And I'm sure
Picking up on you.
Sloane is like seconds away from joining him once
Yes.
she begins speaking.
We're gonna have a roast fest against you.
Yeah. So but it's very fun. It's a very energetic
Mhm.
placement. And I think this can be great for coming up with new ideas, not necessarily long lasting ideas. We call Joey streaky in this house. He'll like go on different tangents.
Mhm.
Um, he like tried tight roping in the pandemic for like 2 weeks and then like bought all this gear and then like that was it and then but it's like that like very streaky like one day he
Very
was like
eerie.
let's do tennis. I'm like
Yeah.
let's do tennis.
Hmm.
We're not going to do tennis. um so yeah, you might have some new ideas or hobbies or things that you want to do but you might not have like the wherewithal, especially with the retrograde energy, to stick with them. So be
Hmm.
gentle with yourself, follow your curiosity, have fun, but don't put pressure on yourself to like this is my new goal. This is my life path. Like let the pieces kind of fall into place. Once Mercury moves into Taurus and the retrograde is over, things are going
Mhm.
to feel more stable.
Yes. I like Mercury and Aries people because they're super blunt and to the point. And as an
Yes.
Aries myself, I really appreciate that. And it's just something that I think other people would take as them being mean, but I just really appreciate the bluntness.
They're very honest,
Very honest.
which is great. As a Leo, I love honesty.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so this could be a time where you speak too soon, right? Mars, you're taking action, you're just
Mhm.
like leading with your impulse.
Mhm.
And feelings could get hurt, but
It's
just
like
keep
getting
on.
triggered. It's like getting triggered in the comment section and you're writing like a paragraph.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
you need to calm down. Take a
Yes.
breath first.
Take a
That's me
breath.
all the time. I'm like, ah.
Yes, before you respond, take a
Yes.
breath.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, Mercury is going to go retrograde later in the month, in a couple days after this. So just pay attention to what's coming through because you've got some stuff to work out.
Hmm. On March 5th, Mercury in Aries will sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees. I like
Yeah,
this.
this is cute. I like this. Now Pluto is the farthest that it's
Mhm.
been in Aquarius. It's only made it to 2 degrees. So
Mhm.
this is kind of great. It's at three
Yes.
degrees now. And yeah, Mercury's the mind, Pluto's a planet of transformation. And since they're meeting in a gentle way, it's really great for self empowerment and research
Mhm.
and deep conversations, for helping to open and change other people's minds and ideas.
Mhm.
Um, yes.
Making like revolutionary posters
Yeah.
or like activist doing some activism online.
Yes, you can gain more attention for it. So this is
Mhm.
definitely one of those aspects to pay attention to. Your words can transform or change someone else.
Yes. On March 7th, Sun in Pisces will trine Mars in Cancer at 17 degrees.
I just like this because it feels a little productive.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to get some of the annoying things done that you've avoided on your to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're just feeling, especially like Mars isn't retrograde anymore, and it's you can make progress, especially in areas where you have felt delays or setbacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just like Jupiter, Mars is going to be at 17 degrees for a little minute, a while. And when Mars stations direct, it's changing directions. So I do believe there is this like paradigm shift wherever you have your Cancer house. And then now you can take action, wherever you were having that reflection moment during the retrograde.
And it can bring some of your hidden feelings to light because we have the
Mhm.
sun, the illuminator, and it can help you process any feelings that you've like delayed or kind of like
Mhm.
danced over, maybe.
Yeah. And Cancer in medical astrology rules the stomach, which is the gut. And so if there was ever a moment where you overrode overrode your gut feelings or your intuition or because the stomach is a second brain,
Mhm.
this is the moment where you can just trust it. And I think that's why Mars is fallen in Cancer, right? Because when it's exalted in Capricorn, you have like physical proof of the thing. You have like the external environment giving you feedback, but this is like your gut.
Right.
And I don't think that is as you don't get as positive reinforcements from the patriarchy when it's like your gut feeling.
Yep. I love that interpretation.
Yes. So March 17th, I'm like fast forwarding life. March 11th, Mercury in Aries conjuncts Venus retrograde in Aries at 8 degrees.
I like when Mercury and Venus come together because usually Venus is a planet of support and relationships, and Mercury is a planet of communication. So This can bring positive news. It can help you
Mhm.
smooth over conflicts, especially anything that's come up during the Venus retrograde so far. If you have gotten in a little tiff here or there, this could help you smooth things over. Um, I think it's also great for accessing your creativity.
Mhm.
There's some, you know,
Yeah. I think there's a sex scandal that's coming out or some like juicy gossip coming out because this is the part when Venus starts descending into the underworld. And also, if you're interested in Venus's like retrograde story with Inanna, the myth of Inanna, and um, because Venus has to descend. And so I think there's something that's going to come up. And I'm like
100%.
excited for the tea.
There, yes, you could definitely see a lot of relationship issues, drama, sex scandal, 100%. I think that is a perfect prediction.
Mm-hmm.
And stay tuned.
And stay tuned.
Mhm.
I mean, it could also be an instance of like abuse too,
Yes, for sure.
because it's a detriment Venus. So it's not all going to be. So I just want to say, like, it might not all be tea in like a funny way. It just is, the reality of Venus retrograde conjunct Mercury in Aries.
And you could literally hear from an ex
Yes.
in your personal life, that is. Sorry.
I'm like, stay in the past, please. That doesn't really happen to me that often, to be honest. It's usually like old friends from the past because I guess it depends on where Venus rules your houses, right? Because Venus rules my 11th house of friendships. So it's usually a friendship versus exes, but we shall see.
Yes. And I will say, like, a lot of people assume, like, oh my gosh, when they hear, like, I'm gonna hear from an ex, it could be that you're reflecting on old relationship patterns. It could be that you are driving and you see their name on a billboard. It could be like you're reminded of them for some reason. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're like tracking you down and
That's true.
texting.
Yes, because it is inner reflection. You have to look within. And usually it's the person that comes back from the past that kind of prompts that, right? You're
Hmm.
like, oh, this relationship didn't go well. I wonder what happened. How am I accountable for it too?
Hmm.
And doing that like inner work. So fun. March
Hmm.
12th, the sun in Pisces will conjunct Saturn in Pisces at 22 degrees.
Shit is really gearing up. So I would say similar to last month when we saw like February 10th through I think the 13th, we said it was just like a Uranus shit show.
Mm-hmm.
This month we have a Saturn shit show
Mm-hmm.
from the 12th through, yeah, the 13th in particular is like a lot of action.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this aspect is baked into that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, which takes place on March 13th. So maybe we just want to pair them together.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
March 13th, we have a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo at 23 degrees.
And so this is our first lunar eclipse in Virgo
Mm-hmm.
now that we're in the Virgo Pisces axis and cycle. We'll still get some themes and topics come up that we experienced during last year's eclipse on September 17th, even though it was in Pisces. Um, but yeah, this eclipse looks interesting because it's conjunct Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is the planet of challenges, restrictions, limitation. In traditional astrology, it is death, it
Mm-hmm.
is hardship. But it's also responsibility, making commitments, setting boundaries, coming up with structures,
Mm-hmm.
something in the tangible world. I think it's very interesting that it's taking place in the third decan of Virgo, which is associated with the Ten of Pentacles, which is a card of like seemingly abundance, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is like
Yeah.
um someone who feels fulfilled and grounded in almost every area of their life. At least that's like the depiction on the card. There's in particular like financial stability because it's the
Mhm.
suit of pentacles. However, so some of that may be challenged under
Mhm.
this eclipse because it's so close to Saturn. So if we didn't have Saturn there, I'd be like, slay.
Yay.
We love this eclipse. But because we have Saturn there, there could be some form of part of that being taken away, or financial insecurity, or
Mhm.
something destabilizing that's coming through. The
Yeah.
eclipse can see its ruler. It's forming a square to Jupiter in Gemini. Um, so it's good that they can see each other, but again, it's in this like not super helpful aspect. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, when you were just talking about the Ten of Pentacles and how the eclipse is conjunct Saturn, it just reminded me of, eclipses is, well, it's a lunar eclipse, right? So that means that the moon is being eclipsed by the sun.
Mhm.
And the moon represents the body and it like our physical manifestations. And so if it's conjunct Saturn and there's some kind of disappointment, maybe something that you've worked a really long time for is either not what you thought, or the dream that you thought that you were trying to achieve is just not it, or it's taken away in some way, like it's eclipsed, it's like bye,
Mhm.
and I hate to say this because I do believe in the power of our minds, that if you believe something, there is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if we're just being like realistic here, I think this is a shocking kind of moment of, oh, something is like not working out to what we thought, right?
It's definitely an ending, and you have like two signatures of that bare minimum. The fact that it's a lunar eclipse and the fact that you have Saturn so closely involved in this eclipse. I think the eclipse is also forming a trine to Mars in Cancer and a sextile to Uranus in Taurus. So it does kind of open up these other like neural pathways of like, okay, this reality check, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I start to consider this. But I do think, give yourself time to process and feel any endings that come through. Don't rush through, or try to bypass any anything, because this is going to be a big moment in all of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Just as a correction, the ruler is Mercury in Aries, right?
Oh, yeah, not Jupiter.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so
Um,
it can't even see the ruler. Boo.
so the ruler of the eclipse is Mercury in Aries, which is in its shadow. But Jupiter in Gemini is still forming a square.
Oh my God. If you're not watching the video version of this, my mouth is like on the floor. I'm like, my jaw just dropped. Um, okay. So,
You're experiencing the retrograde now.
yes, because, well, that's such an important point you just made, because Mercury goes retrograde in Aries the day after this eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
the ruler of this eclipse is literally stationary. It's a absolute turn of events.
Events. Yes. Yes, but you weren't wrong. Jupiter is still forming a square. Uh, it's a wide orb, but it's still forming it, right?
Mhm.
And the eclipse is conjunct, so the sun is conjunct Saturn, and it's trying to Mars and Cancer, sextile to Uranus and Taurus. So there is something about this eclipse that is final, that something is ending, which is an eclipse, right? Which is a full moon, essentially. There's a turn of events, maybe multiple areas of your life. And it might be a little surprising with that sextile to Uranus.
Yes. I just pulled up the chart, and Mercury is going to station retrograde at 9 degrees in
Mm-hmm.
Aries, and Venus station retrograde at 10
10
degrees of
degrees.
Aries. So whatever is taking place on this eclipse is also bringing you back to March 1st, when Venus went retrograde.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And the last eclipse that happened in Virgo was the solar eclipse, which is a new moon in Virgo on September 1st, 2016. So there was like a new beginning that happened then. And now we're picking that story back up with this full moon. What is it, like 8 years, 9 years ago,
Wow. Uh-huh.
or more than that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yes,
Yeah.
something is ending in your Virgo house.
Yeah.
Be aware, pay attention. And may I just say, I know everybody says this and it must be so fucking annoying when people say this, but you have to trust that the ending is meant to be an ending because there's something better, or the thing that you've been calling in, all the new moons that we talk about, like set an intention. When you set that intention, it starts a course of events that you don't see necessarily, and that things have to end and die metaphorically in order for that thing to come in. So as humans, we tend to crash out when we're like, oh my God, my this thing is ending, or I quit, or I quit my job, or I had to quit my job, or I got fired, or my relationship is ending. But it's to take a moment during eclipses, because it's like, oh, Jesus is taking the wheel, or the universe is taking the wheel, divine intervention is taking over and saying, you asked for this in some capacity. So,
Yes. 100%. 100%. And rejection is redirection and
mhm,
protection.
yes.
So,
Every major life event that I've experienced has been around eclipses. And in the moment, I was like, why is this happening to me? But it's always worked out for the best for me.
mhm.
Like a relationship ending, a job ending, a breakup with a friend. It's always been for the highest good of myself. So, yeah, just something to keep in mind.
Mhm.
So, the very next day, as we mentioned, on March 14th, Mercury will station retrograde in the sign of Aries.
Yes. And it's going to stay retrograde until April 7th. It is essentially tracing over the Venus retrograde story that you're already going through. It's also bringing you back to the Mercury retrograde in Aries we had last April from the 1st through 25th. So this is a big one for sure
Mm-hmm.
because now
I
we're
don't know.
double
After
retrograde.
That's true. That is true. But I was going to say, after the Mars retrograde, I don't feel like Mercury retrogrades are a big deal anymore.
I know. I
You
know.
know what I
Mars,
mean? I'm just like,
this Mars retrograde in particular has been hellacious.
oh, worst.
But yeah, and I think it also like our charts were impacted directly by the Mars retrograde. So
True.
I think that is also something to consider. But yeah, it we have these two inner planets now retrograde. So we went from having Mars retrograde, which is such a doozy and more rare. It only happens like once every 2.5 years.
Mhm.
Um, but now we have two of the inner planets retrograde, which is
Yes. And these retrogrades are happening in their detriment and fall,
mhm.
like the planets are trying to access a part of themselves that is so far from their comfort.
Yes, yes.
That it's like we're all like, what do we do?
Yeah. So this could be yeah, because once it re-enters Pisces, it's going to be in fall. So just pay attention, start taking notes once Venus goes retrograde. Pay attention to the news stories that are coming through around that time because there's going to be directly correlating developments taking place.
Mm-hmm. More on that later on. March 14th, the sun in Pisces will sextile Uranus and Taurus at 23 degrees.
I think this is just like a welcomed sigh of relief. We're still in the midst of eclipse season. We have another one to come, but I think this just helps you shake off some of the funk, try something new, and consider alternative approaches or solutions.
Yes. And yeah, I just think it's energizing too, with that sextile to Uranus and Taurus. I think it's just like this boost of electrifying energy that maybe otherwise, because for me, maybe I'm projecting, but Pisces season is like so sad.
So many tears. I just cry in a bathtub the entire time.
Literally.
Yeah.
March 17th, the sun in Pisces will conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 27 degrees.
This is also going to bring us back to March 1st when Mercury was forming a conjunction with the North Node.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, this could feel like a moment of illumination on your path and where you're headed, your destiny. You could meet fated people. Um, yeah,
I would also say on the opposite end, because the North Node has this like it's the head of the dragon, so it has this like obsessive energy and because it's an increasing point. I can see people who are in the new age spiritual spaces have like spiritual psychosis and go off the deep end.
mm, definitely. There's a
5 years.
yeah, a strong element of Delulu there and
They're still
paranoia.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there I guess we're always going to have them in every era, but I would just caution people who are into psychedelic drugs to be careful.
Yeah, especially given our next transit a couple days later.
Yes, because on March 19th, the sun in Pisces will conjunct Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. And this is such a Delulu transit.
It can kick up your anxiety, your insecurities, projections, your boundaries are out the window. So, yeah, like this is not the time to leave the dimension. It might give you the urge to escape more and more, but
I
this is,
disassociate. Mhm.
yeah, and dissociate. But, you know, try to find a safer way to dissociate, whether it's like staring at a blank wall or cuddling in a blanket and binging a show.
Mhm.
Or you could, you know, try to do a little bit of grounding, which is what I would recommend. Trying to
Mhm.
get back into your physical body and being proactive about connecting to the tangible world is important on that day.
Mhm. Dream work, doing reading some poetry, writing poetry, watching a fantasy movie. These are all like channels you can use instead of like trying to escape your reality. I mean, who doesn't want to escape this reality at this moment, right? But
Yeah.
but, but harnessing it in a healthier way is what to do with all this Neptunian Pisces energy.
And mask up. Wear your mask if you catch a
Yes.
cold. You should always be
Yes.
masking up because we are still in a pandemic that is,
Yes.
you know,
And other things apparently. There's like the norovirus, the bird flu, the flu.
yes.
There's like all this weird shit going on.
Yes, all of these viruses are continuing to really, really affect disabled and elderly people, and they matter. So please wear your mask.
On March 20th, the sun will enter Aries and it will be the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere and the fall equinox in the southern hemisphere. And as astrologers, we consider this to be the real new year.
Welcome to the brand new year.
Yes.
Yes. Um, this is when you should set your intentions. This is
Yeah.
when you should just start setting new goals for yourself or reflecting too on how far you've come, everything that's changed, everything you've manifested. Do
Mhm.
your goals that you had originally set for yourself still feel in alignment? How have you changed? How have your values changed? That kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah, and this is the world point, which we mentioned in the beginning. So just watch out for what happens in the news, what happens in your life, because 0.0 degrees in the cardinal signs are world points. On March 21st, Venus in Aries will sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees.
Adorable. What
The
else do we
20th
have
is
on the
my
20th?
solar return.
Yes.
Yes, I am an Aries. March 20th, Aries.
Yes. So
That's
that's a big day for you.
it is a big day for me. And I will be 43.
I love it. And you're going to have this Venus sextile Pluto in your solar return chart.
Yes.
Cute.
And I sent you my solar return chart like last year.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, look
Yes.
at this.
It's going to be a powerful year.
Like, what do you think all this is going to mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think just generally in the month of March, it's so much Pisces and then Aries and then back into Pisces.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah, I'm excited for this Venus sextile Pluto in Aquarius because it's very sexy to me.
It is a sexy time. It's a great time to deepen your relationships with the important
Mhm.
people in your life. You could like sign a contract or make a new creative commitment that feels transformative or healing.
Yes. This to me is like, if you don't believe in the revolution, I cannot date you.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Your values.
Yes.
You're going to be turned on by someone who is standing up for their values courageously.
Yes. I was literally telling my mom that when Luigi Mangione came onto the scene, I was like, that healed something in me. Like
Hmm.
watching a white man do that healed something in me. And so
Hmm.
now white men are back on the table,
Okay. Okay. We need,
especially Italians.
as I say, we need to get you Luigi.
Yeah, I mean Luigi's a little young for me, but I'm open. I'm open,
You know,
Luigi.
though, with your Venus in a Saturn ruled sign, it's all about age gaps. So it could
That's
be younger.
true. That's true.
Hmm.
As long as he's doing something,
Right.
like Venus and Aries is active. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? It's like, I
Yep.
love you so much. I will take out a CEO.
Yes. Yes. He set the bar high. Let's not lie.
Has Venus and Aries, I think. I
Oh,
think so. I think he's a Taurus sun and a Mars in Taurus. And I think his Venus, he has a bunch of Aries.
okay.
So
This
it
is
makes
checking out.
sense. Yes. Anyway, going off my Luigi rant, March 22nd, the Sun in Aries will conjunct Venus retrograde in Aries at 2 degrees.
This is great. Halfway
Yes.
point of our Venus retrograde story. So this could definitely bring revelations, a turning point,
Mhm.
temporary relief.
Yeah, illumination. This is usually when Venus, like if we're following the myth of Inanna, when she starts her ascent up back from the underworld,
Mhm.
and when she's realized that the part of her that needs to die in order for her to become the person that she's meant to be. And so there's like a reclamation of power in some way. And and I really love this Venus in retrograde in Aries and Pisces in this story because I think a lot of people mistake the dark feminine as evil. You know, if you think of like Lilith and Eris and who else in like the pantheon, like Persephone, even with Hades, it's like, oh, they're the
Medusa.
Medusa, thank you. Like they are evil. And it's not like dark feminine energy is about chaos and destruction for a purpose and intention.
And
And also,
reclaiming your power.
literally, I don't really love this like the only feminine figures we have is like Aphrodite. It's like love and light and beauty for like the patriarchal gaze. It's like, no.
Yeah. I just started reading more of Asteroid Goddess by
Mhm.
Demetra George, and
Yes, I love that book.
fascinating,
It's such a
fascinating.
good book. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
I'm diving into Pallas Athene, which
Yes.
is conjunct my midheaven, which explains so much.
OMG. Wait,
I
what
know.
sign is that? Aries?
Mine's in Aries, yeah.
Mine's in Libra.
Love. We balance it out. We balance it out. We're here to make change in the world, and
Wait,
yeah.
I actually love that you're reading that book because when I read that book, it just opened up this whole like I had my feminine awakening. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And when we say feminine, we don't just mean women because it's like
Yes.
feminine and masculine energy are in everybody.
100%. And Palace in particular is all about like androgyny. And
Mhm.
I, recently changed my pronouns to she, they, because I've
Mhm.
like never felt like on a binary. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Palace, thank you for being so seen. I
Yeah.
feel so like, yeah.
Yeah, because she was a warrior too. She was
Hmm.
badass. I mean, she
Yeah.
wasn't, oh, she was problematic sometime, actually all the time. And like the Athena, Athens was named after her.
Hmm.
She's
Yep.
badass.
Yeah. So look up the asteroids if you haven't checked them
Yes.
out.
So we just talked about yes, March 25th, Mercury in Aries will sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees.
Yep. And this is going to bring us back to March 21st. So you're having conversations from, continued from whatever took place on the 21st when Venus met with Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
And March 23rd, the sun will meet with Pluto. Okay, so March 23rd, the sun is going to meet with Pluto. And that is going to bring us
Mm-hmm.
to March 25th when Mercury meets with Pluto.
Yes.
So we're having a little bit of this like continued conversation from the 21st to the 23rd to the 25th. And on March 25th, we reached the halfway point of our Mercury retrograde journey.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 degrees. Again, similar to what we were talking about with the sun conjunct Venus, you are having a moment of illumination and clarity and temporary relief from your Mercury retrograde journey.
Oh, yes. I skipped March 24th. The sun in Aries conjunct Mercury retrograde in Aries at 4 degrees. And then on March 25th, Mercury in Aries sextile Pluto in Aquarius. So, like, the sun and Mercury is like a rebirth of Mercury. And then after the rebirth, it's like, hey, Pluto, what's going on? Mercury in Greek mythology is Hades, and Hades, no, Hermes.
Mhm.
And Hermes was the one permitted in the underworld because Pluto is Hades.
Yeah. So they're kind of vibing,
Yeah.
and Hermes is the only one who can hang with Hades.
Yes. He was the usher of the dead. He
Yep.
like ushered people into the underworld.
Hmm.
So we're not saying this like literally, but maybe metaphorically. And also, Mercury is retrograde at this time. So I'm just thinking maybe you said something when Mercury was direct, and now you're like, was that the right thing to say?
Yeah, clearing up miscommunications. I also like this for uh clearing out limiting beliefs, changing
Ooh,
the way you speak to yourself.
love that.
Right.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Mhm.
Like doing some shadow work and trying to figure out the root cause of some limiting belief systems and blockages. I
Yep.
love that.
Yep.
On March 27th, Venus retrograde will re enter Pisces and it will bring you back to February 3rd.
Interesting. I'm going to be curious. Are we going to start to feel some sort of like kind of relief because
Mm-hmm.
Mercury is now in the exaltation?
Mm-hmm. Venus.
Um, oh yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're so retrograde this
I know.
whole
I feel like the retrograde energy is getting the best of us.
I'm getting everything wrong, literally. Just kidding. We're doing our best. Bear with us. Mercury is going, I mean, not Mercury, Venus. Venus is going to be in its
Venus.
exaltation. Yeah.
No, I
Uh,
do think it's going to be a really, I think it's going to be sweet. I think Venus in Aries is going to be like aggressive and a little feisty. And then when Venus re enters Pisces, it's going to be like, ooh, I want to vibe. I want to like canoodle with you.
yes. It definitely, it's going to be co-present with Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces. So it also might, yeah, bring out your sensitivities. Maybe you're
Yeah.
discussing commitments or you're rethinking commitments or
Mhm.
reconsidering your relationship with desire and pleasure, how you show up in a relationship too.
Mhm. I like when I like when Saturn is with Neptune. I feel like Saturn gives an anchor to Neptune and also all that Pisces energy because you need something as a container. You need something to hold on to. Like even if it's like a small like life-saving raft in the ocean.
In the most like positive manifestation of Saturn and Neptune together is that it does give, like you said, that structure to the
Mhm.
intangible dream. It like helps
Yes.
you
Bring it
um,
down.
bring it down and build
Yeah.
it.
Hmm. Okay, so March 27th, same day, when it re-enters Pisces, Venus will conjunct Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. And this will bring you back to February 1st when they had that first conjunction.
Yeah, this is very also like red flaggy and
Rose
um
colored glasses.
rose colored glasses. So just if something feels
Mhm.
too good to be true, try to use your discernment. Try to avoid making important relationship decisions on this day if you can. Like give yourself like plus or minus a couple days to really like feel it out. Um, because things are not as clear
Yeah.
as they might seem. And we're a couple days shy of the next eclipse.
Yeah. I also would say like delusions of grandeur, like this person really likes me. Meanwhile, he just looked at your stories.
Right, 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 right. Where, yeah, planning your wedding when someone just like liked your story.
Yeah.
Yeah, slow down. Slow
I
down.
might have done that once or
Hey,
twice.
I've been there. Come on.
This person like really likes me.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then, yeah. So just like have a little discernment because you might be making up stories in your head.
absolutely.
So on March 29th, there is a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Aries at 9 degrees. The last one of
This
this
is
eclipse series.
this is the last one. Oh, thank the heavens.
Oh, you didn't like them? I like them. I mean, I lost a lot of friends, but it was all for the highest good of myself.
It is yeah, I would just say so this eclipse series has been on my MC and IC axis and
Ooh,
it's been a lot. It's
wow.
good. It's been good. Like you said
Yeah.
earlier in the recording, that all eclipses are for our highest good. But I would just
Mhm.
say it's been a lot of like breaking cycles, breaking patterns,
Mhm.
setting important boundaries within my family,
Yes.
that have stirred some things up
Yes.
and caused
But
challenges.
the North Node conjuncture midheaven, like you've shown up in a different way. You experimented and you tried different things, which is very Aries, you know?
Yes. And I had a human.
And you had a human who was an Aries.
I had a little baby Aries that showed up around the time I think the North Node was on my MC.
Wow.
I
I
know.
mean, this is why I love astrology. You cannot make this shit up.
Hmm.
Wow. I definitely, so the North Node was transiting through my fifth house. And in Vedic astrology, the fifth house is one of the Dharma houses, like 1, 5, and 9.
Hmm.
And you wouldn't think that, right? Because the fifth house is like pleasure, joy, children. But now I understand why, because the more you do things that you love, the closer you are to your purpose.
Mm. Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
I mean, honestly, and I realized this like a month ago when I was reflecting back on these eclipses, and I was like, oh, I just literally started doing the things I loved again, like traveling, gathering with friends, astrology, studying astrology, and collaboration with friends. And I just feel like myself. Like this is my purpose.
I love that. I had
Yes.
chills. Oh.
Yes. Oh. So, yeah, let's talk about this solar eclipse in Aries. You want to kick it off?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't like this one. Um, spoiler alert. So the ruler of this eclipse is Mars for real. And it is Mars in Cancer forming a square with Chiron exactly. So Mars is action, anger, violence, motivation. And Chiron is our core wounding and pain.
Mm-hmm.
So this is certainly a triggering aspect. Um, Anything that takes place around this time could prompt you to also take action on your healing journey too. I would say that's
Mhm.
like the most positive manifestation. But people will probably be reactive and triggered under this eclipse. Things are going to be murky because Mercury and Venus retrograde are also forming a conjunction with the North Node and Neptune at this time. So there's just a lot of projection and insecurities and anxiety and, heightened uncertainty and a lot of pain.
Yeah.
There's, I, yeah, I just don't have the best feeling of this eclipse. Okay, then the other thing is um, a book. Let me grab from my handy dandy shelf that's right next to me. Um, 36 Secrets by T. Susan Chang is one of my favorite books about the decans in astrology
Mhm.
and tarot.
Mhm.
And she describes, so this solar eclipse is taking place in the Two of Wands, associated with the Two
Mhm.
of Wands. And that is like an emperor or a leader looking out
Mhm.
into the kingdom that he's like about to like take over and expand. There's like colonization undertones to this.
I was gonna
Uh,
say it gives colonizer vibes.
it gives colonizer vibes. So like yes, the Two of Wands can in our personal lives mean some like positive expansion as well.
Mhm.
Um, but I think there are colonizer vibes to this
Mhm.
eclipse. And given what is about to happen the following day,
Yeah.
uh, I just think I am feeling nervous about tension, conflict on the world stage growing.
Mhm. Yes, and the whole this whole eclipse series started back in 2023, right? And the one that I remember is the solar eclipse in Libra in October of 2023, and that is when Israel and Palestine really like started to come up in the news again, and when the live stream genocide really started to catch everyone's attention, and this is the last one of that series. And I just get nervous because, again, Israel has a Libra rising, and every single eclipse that has happened between Aries and Libra, they do something. They do
Yeah.
something problematic. And so if we're thinking about the seventh house of Aries is like, if we would call that Palestine, right? Because they're like linked like that. And I'm just nervous that the Mars in Cancer, which is Israel's 10th house, and Chiron is in the seventh, that there, I don't know, something is going to happen again.
I think it's going to have to do with Trump taking over
Mm,
Palestine
hmm.
and Gaza, like he's been saying, like
The Riviera.
the Riviera of the East.
I'm like, come on, colonizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, this also reminds me of that Chiron eclipse last April, where it was the solar eclipse in Aries as well, and it was conjunct Chiron.
Yes. And now
And
this is the
yes,
opening square of that.
yes. And, that one I felt was super powerful because Aries is exalted. The sun is exalted in Aries, and 19 degrees is the exaltation degree. So I'm wondering if this is like furthering a story that started back then, which I have to like think back because so much has happened since then. But that
Yes.
was last April.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
100% it's connected. This is a big one to pay attention to, especially because it's like the last eclipse in the series. So it's like an exclamation point.
Mhm.
Um, and the news is going to be off the charts around this time. And I'd say also watch out for disinformation
Mhm.
and misinformation because of all that Neptune activation. Um, the government will probably try to distract us. They might be
Mhm.
feeding us, they will be feeding us lies because that's what they do every day.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah, and just stuff happening in the US too with the ongoing ice raids and the assault on trans bodies and just everything that's going on, all the most vulnerable and marginalized communities, we have to take that Mars and Cancer and protect them.
Yep.
Like that's how we can transmute some of this, I don't even know what to call it, like terrorizing energy.
Hate.
This like, yeah, this hate, because cancer is when it's like in its shadow aspect is nationalism. It is make America great again. It is, my mom calls it white promise, not white supremacy, which I think is
Love that.
funny. And the ways in which we could combat that is Mars and Cancer, like protection, protecting the most vulnerable people. So yeah, watch out for that day, and it is the last one like we mentioned, and we're not going to have one for the next like 9 years, right?
Yep.
Yeah. March 29th, Mercury retrograde will re-enter Pisces, and this will bring you back to February 13th. So this is
Yes.
the
And
same day as the eclipse.
yep. And it's going to also form another conjunction with Neptune and Pisces, which will also bring us back to March 2nd. So, yeah, this
That's
energy is
right.
all
Mhm.
baked into the eclipse. It's that confusion, the misinformation, the, I think, overwhelmingly, like when you have a lot of planets in Pisces, it reminds us how interconnected we are. And
Mhm.
you are tapped into the collective unconscious. So you might
Mhm.
feel overwhelmed with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
It's a big day to feel your feelings as well.
I always say empathy is a curse and a gift at the same time because I feel like I am way too soft for this cruel world. Every time I watch anything that is happening in the world right now, I immediately like am bawling.
It is because you and I both have Jupiter in the 12th house.
Yes,
We cannot hang. We
I
cannot
can.
hang.
I can. I probably told this story before, but when I went to visit Stephanie for the first time, we met in real life. I stayed at her home and her husband cooked us dinner. And this was like the first time I'm hanging out with her husband. And we're watching, what was that movie? We were watching Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah.
which is a Marvel movie. Okay. But at the end of this movie, I don't know if you've ever watched this movie, so I might like spoiler alert, the character Groot, which is a tree, he starts forming a nest to protect his friends, and I start hysterically sobbing out of control. And Joey was like, "Are you okay?"
It was so funny. It was so sweet
They
and
were laughing at me. They were like, "Are you
sweet.
okay?"
It was so sweet and hilarious.
I was like, I'm not okay. He's sacrificing himself.
A a deep, deep feeling. It's what makes me love
Oh
you
my
so
God.
much.
Oh my God. But literally, when we're talking about, I literally might even cry just thinking about it. Like all of this um Piscean energy and this Neptune in Pisces is that deep compassion and empathy for humanity.
Yep.
And that ability to, no matter like who you are, where you're from, or where you are in life, it's like just that deep respect and love for people and
Yeah.
life.
Hmm.
And I never want to like cut that part off of me, but sometimes it really hurts.
I know. I know. It's a superpower. It is a superpower and it is a curse, like you said. But
Yes, which vibe shift on March 30th, Neptune will enter Aries. Wow.
so,
Wow, wow, wow.
wowza. This is the first time since 1861. And for our history buffs out there, that is the same year that the Civil War started.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
End
Um,
scene. Goodbye.
Goodbye. We'll see you next month. Uh, hope you enjoyed your forecast. Um, yeah, I mean, okay. I don't think I don't believe in like astrology fear mongering, but I don't think that this is fear mongering. I think it is very visible that like the veil that has thinly and barely existed has been fully like pulled off. Like we saw the inauguration, we saw the front row bro oligarchy.
Mm-hmm.
We are watching the richest man in the planet, or like one of the richest people in the whole world, like calling all the shots and illegally just changing the entire government from the inside out, and like nobody is stopping him, and nobody, everyone
Mm-hmm.
is just like, we're locked out of the building, there's nothing we can do. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
if he can do, you can do something. Anyways, I digress.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we're watching fascism rise, like, and all over the world, but especially here in America, like Trump is play by play, like taking plays out of Hitler's book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
And
something,
Elon is doing that salute, like
oh,
literally.
he literally did a Nazi salute. It's like,
Yes.
how literal do we need to be here? I
Yes.
mean, and then he went to a far right conference in Germany. Did you hear about that? And he was like talking about, he was like supporting their cause basically, which is again,
Yes, I have to fact check this, but my mom told me that his ancestors were Nazis. So
oh,
it's not like that far fetched.
wowza. Okay, we need to look
No.
into this.
Yeah.
But definitely he is a Nazi now.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we're living in the early stages of fascism, and it's something we all need to pay attention to. And I believe Neptune was also in Pisces during one of the world wars, right? Let me look it up. Let me look it up.
Neptune in Pisces or Aries?
Oh, sorry, I mean Aries. Oh
Well,
no, we had the
Venus.
opposite. Ooh,
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay, so during World War II, we had Neptune in Libra,
Hmm.
which is a part of the Neptune cycle. So
Hmm.
that to have it in, okay.
Hmm. Yeah, and there was a Venus and Aries retrograde during World War II, I believe,
Okay.
1945, just as it was ending.
Okay. And we had
Yeah.
Pluto in Leo, and right now we have Pluto in Aquarius. So we're having a lot of these like oppositions take place.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, and oh, Uranus and Gemini is also
Gemini.
fighting. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
we had Uranus and Gemini both in the Civil War and in World War
World
II.
War II. Yes.
And that is coming, spoiler alert,
In
July.
July. July 7th, which is the day after or 3 days after the USA's solar return,
Right.
which I think is interesting
Yeah.
because it's a return for the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah.
And let's just say some positive things about Neptune and Aries, how this could manifest, just to end this on a high note. So, like, Neptune is your ideals and your beliefs. Yes, it's delusions and illusions, but Robert Hand, who is an astrologer, has always said that Neptune is our reality. And that's what I like about Neptune Saturn conjunctions is that it really takes Saturn to like bring it down into Earth. And so if we are tuning into Neptune in our ideals of this collective liberation and liberation for all, how can we then take action, Aries, to make it a reality?
Mm.
And, you know, everybody has their own role, everybody has their gift that they're doing. Not everyone's going to like be in the armed resistance, right? Even though every revolution has had some form of armed resistance, I think you have to know you and you have to know yourself and know what you bring to the table. Very Aries.
Yes. And Neptune is also a planet of like disillusionment. And so this could also help you kind of strip away false pieces of yourself
Yes.
over time and help you show up more authentically
Mhm.
and to claim your gifts more authentically. And when
Mhm.
we are in our joy and living our purpose, which is something that capitalism prevents
Mhm.
us from doing because we are in the grind and we need to focus on survival, that is when um, like we are able to show up together in community and make like such impactful changes. So that could be positive.
Ooh, I like what you said about shedding like false identities because I really do believe that is the switch from Neptune and Pisces to Neptune and Aries. It's like I think when that happens, people are going to realize there's nobody going to save, no one's going to save you.
Yep.
None of these like leaders are going to save you. And I think a lot of people might be afraid of that because we live in a patriarchy that infantilizes us, but it's also that you are the leader. Like you have to figure that out on your own.
Yep. This is the beginning of a major shift, and Neptune will be in Aries, I think, until 2039. So it's
Yeah,
a longer,
14 years.
yeah, a longer transit, but it is, I I feel positive about where it is taking us. I think we
Mhm.
just are in the beginning stages and it's going to take time.
Yes. And so that is our March forecast. I can't believe we got through that.
I know. We
Barely.
did so much.
So
Alrighty.
we wish you all health, wealth, and safety during this time, and we will see you next month. Bye.
Bye.